We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, roll call, please.
Certainly. Mr. Delaney?
Here.
Mr. Dern?
Here.
Mr. Doyle?
Here.
Mr. Hadley?
Here.
Mr. Seitz?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Mr. Vento?
Here.
Mayor Schlegel?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I'll entertain a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report for the month of February 2022.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Dern.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 14th, 2022 council meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Dern.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hadley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Mayor, recognitions of achieving the community.
I have one very important one. Officer Iacchini. Yes, Mother.
Which one?
I want Crystal, please. She's busy feeding the baby. By the way, is Ariana allowed to have a coloring book?
Sure. You want a coloring book?
Do you stay within the lines?
It's a work in progress.
Okay.
Very good.
I've talked with Crystal on this and a while back, and she told me that she was just doing her job. And this is not in recognition of you doing your job, the same as your husband does his. This is in recognition of how you do your job. This proclamation is honoring the heroism of Officer Crystal Iacchini. Whereas Plum Police Officer Crystal Iacchini responded to call for service on January 12, 2022, involving a victim who was shot multiple times at 827 Emerald Drive. And whereas Officer Crystal Iacchini once again demonstrated her ability to overcome adversity, remain calm in the face of danger, provide medical attention to the victim, and apprehended the suspect. Whereas Officer Crystal Iacchini arrived on scene and immediately provided care and medical assistance to the victim, who had suffered 3 gunshot wounds. Whereas Officer Crystal Iacchini, while treating the victim, updated the responding medical units on the victim's injuries. And whereas Officer Iacchini provided responding police officers the name, a physical description of the suspect, and direction of flight. Officer Iacchini obtained critical descriptive information from the victim's account of the incident that aided in providing officers a perspective of the subject's frame of mind and apparent cause of the attempted homicide. Officer Iacchini located and single-handedly apprehended the suspect several hours after her initial encounter with the victim. Officer Crystal Iacchini displayed dedication, professionalism, and heroic efforts to the citizens of Plum Boro. From start to finish, Officer Iacchini provided medical attention to a critically injured person, obtained and provided crucial information regarding the circumstances of the incident, apprehended a fleeing felon to maintain the safety of the Plum Boro community, namely the residents of Kellywood Estates Housing Plan. Now therefore, I, Harry R. Schlegel, Mayor, do hereby recognize with respect and the utmost gratitude Officer Crystal Iacchini for her extraordinary efforts that provided medical aid and comfort to the victim of gun violence, and for acts of heroism and courage in the apprehension of a fleeing felon. This is another perfect example of Officer Crystal Iacchini's dedication and commitment to public safety. In witness thereof, I have set my hand on this 14th day of March 2022. And Crystal, it was your immediate supervisor, the assistant chief, and Chief Conley that helped me write this thing, because they were so impressed with it as you did your job. Officer, thank you. You have something for the officer? Well, in the new building, I understand he has a plan.
Does he?
Yes, and it involves all the officers in dress uniform getting their picture taken, and we expect you to be wearing those 2 citations, sir. Have a great one. Nick,
Thank you so much.
be safe out there tonight. That's it for now, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll move along to civic announcements. Any civic announcements this evening? I thought so.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Pam from the library. I just want to let you all know that we have our upcoming spring book sale on Saturday, April 9th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. A bag of books, DVDs, CDs, whatever you can fit in a bag. Doesn't matter what size the bag is, bring your own bag, is only $10. If you are interested in donating items, you can drop off items at the library from Monday, March 28th through April 6th. We just ask that they're in good condition, and we won't accept any VHS, encyclopedias, or textbooks. But if you have any questions, call the library, and we'll be happy to direct you. We'll also be having baskets, raffle baskets, throughout the month of April as well, to raise money for the library during National Library Week. If anyone has any questions, just give us a call.
Thank you very much.
And may I ask you to stick around for the mayor's report, please?
Any other civic announcements? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along to President's comments, of which I have none this evening, to citizens' comments on agenda items.
Nobody signed
All right, no one signed up. We'll move along to council actions. Mr. Delaney, on behalf of the Planning and Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, I move to adopt Resolution 922-22, authorizing the request of the statewide local share assessment grant in the amount of $1 million.
We have a motion by Mr. Delaney,
Seconded.
second by Mr. Dern. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That'll be all, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Headley, on behalf of the Personnel and Management Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Personnel and Management Committee, I move to adopt the Plum Boro Board Member Emeritus bylaws for appointment.
Motion by Mr. Hadley.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On behalf of the Personnel and Management Committee, I move to appoint Lorinda Schlegel as the DPW Office Manager Executive Assistant effective March 22nd, 2022 at a starting annual salary of $58,000.
We have a motion by Mr. Hadley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Seitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
And that is all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Mr. Taylor, on behalf of Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Parks and Recreation Committee, I move to approve the request from the Plum Lacrosse to erect a storage building at the Plum Creek Park.
Motion by Mr. Taylor.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On behalf of the Parks and Recreation Committee, I move to approve the 4 requests from the Plum Baseball and Softball Association as requested in their proposal.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Taylor, seconded by, is that Mr. Vento? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move to table the next item pertaining to the splash pad and the ice rink.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor to table.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dern. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is tabled.
On behalf of the Parks and Rec Committee, I move to approve the Plum Boro School District's usage of Plum Creek Park and Larry Mills Park for district athletic programs.
Motion by Mr. Taylor.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. On behalf of Roads, Equipment, and Grounds, Mr. Vento.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Roads, Equipment, and Grounds Committee, I move to accept the proposal of Third Generation to migrate the existing phone system.
Motion by Mr. Vento,
So moved.
seconded by
Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Also, on behalf of the committee, I move to accept the proposal of Duda Cabling to install fiber optic cabling between the buildings at the new municipal center.
Motion by Mr. Vento,
Seconded.
second by Mr. Dern. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vento. That ends council actions. Mr. Mayor, Mayor's report.
Thank you.
Do I need to remind you
Do we keep it brief?
that you're not getting paid by the word? Yes, sir.
Yes, I am, by the way. This is Proclamation regarding National Library Week for 2022. Whereas the Plum Community Library has long served as a trusted and treasured institution, and library workers fuel efforts to better the Plum community. Whereas the Plum Community Library continues to fulfill its role in leveling the playing field for all who seek information and access to technologies. Whereas the Plum Community Library offers more than books, offering opportunities for community engagement and delivering new services that more closely connect communities and their needs. Whereas the Plum Community Library offers a variety of community programs and opportunities that allow individuals to meet their personal, educational, professional, and recreational needs. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions, often the heart of their cities, towns, schools, and recreational needs, and academic campuses. Whereas libraries are a resource for all, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. Whereas libraries serve people of all ages, interests, and backgrounds, providing the resources and space to engage in lifelong learning. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Harry R. Schlegel, Mayor of the Borough of Plum, proclaim National Library Week, April 3 through 9, 2022. I encourage residents to visit their local library this week and beyond, exploring all the library has to offer. Libraries provide the fuel to move Pennsylvania forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the other thing I have is, and we're getting to that time of year where the radar display will be coming out again, and that means the idiots will be out there running them. We had 782 calls for service during the month of December, and this was a decrease, month of February, Chief. That's okay. This was a 4.6 decrease from the previous month. I'm going to go through this quick because they told me I'm not getting paid by the ward. Thoughtful citizens, and this is always the fun part. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, Pat and Stan Kazmarski delivered 4 dozen of donuts to the police department as a gesture of gratitude to thank our officers, and they declined to have their photo taken. On February 17th, Lynn Wolf delivered 2 dozen individually wrapped homemade banana bread loaves to show her appreciation to our police department. Gentlemen, are you listening to this every month, what they get? On February 25th, Margaret Kolechik delivered 3 dozen of eggs from her farm on Salzburg Road to thank our officers for their service.
I'm hearing things that you're not getting, and it's a burn your saddle.
You're getting that.
Yeah.
We also received additional thank you cards from borough residents, and those are the people who received gift cards and cookies that were purchased from the officers' donation from the No Shave December proceeds. That was from Bernie and Shirley Fraser and Arlene Bradley. I want to give you an update on our new officers that we've hired over the last couple months. Officer Eric Belton, he continues to excel with his project. And right now, Eric counts as manpower.
Yes, he does.
So he's no longer on he's through the shadowing phase and on his own. Officer Justin Farneth is still on probation. He was working midnight shifts. Now they've rotated him to daylight where he'll get much more experience, let's put it that way. And his progress has been exemplary. He's completed the shadowing phase, and he should be counting sometime here to manpower.
He started last week. Manpower.
And Officer Grant Faulkner, is he the one that's looking to take into traffic?
Yes, he is. He's currently on midnight shift right now.
And he is. All these officers are moving through the program much faster. They all had previous experience. They have to learn the way we do things in Plum. And our last hire was Officer Cody Zelke, Unfortunately, he began his career on midnights, and that's not real conducive to actual on-the-job training. His FTO is Daryl Granada, and they've made the most of their midnight shifts by learning the geography of Plum Boro, which is kind of different from where he was before. And he's done many online courses. And he is expected to go to daylight shift this month, or he is already on daylight. He's on daylight. And all these gentlemen should be counting towards manpower by June.
Definitely.
And they're all exceptional in what they brought to the community. That's all I have for now, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to apologize. I did forget one motion. I skipped right over it. So I'm going to go back to that. I need a motion to approve the expenses for the month of February 2022.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Taylor.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Dern. Mr. Thomas, if you will.
Certainly, the general fund payables requiring council approval, $772,534.20. The street improvement fund payables requiring council approval, $2,284.02. Fire fund payables requiring council approval, $31,748.77. Capital improvement fund payables requiring council approval, $88,222.96. Flood mitigation fund payables requiring council approval, $2,801.09. EMS fund payables requiring council approval, $2,906.08. 2019 bond fund payables requiring council approval, $457,392.37. Purchasing card direct vendor payments, Westmoreland County Sanitary Landfill, $167,440.10. And miscellaneous purchases of $5,632.04 for total payables to be approved of $1,530,961.63.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the expenses?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to committee reports, the Intergovernmental Cooperative Committee with the Plum School District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Short and sweet, we had a meeting March 2nd, myself, a few school directors, Mr. Thomas, members from the Plum Midget Football Association, Plum Wrestling, Plum Baseball Softball Association, Plum Area Soccer, and Plum Lacrosse all met, and we discussed facilities rental between those programs and the school district and how we would like to amend the current policy to make it more affordable. And that was it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hadley.
Yep.
Finance Committee, Mr. Seitz.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. So sometime before the end of the March, our independent auditor, Meyer Dussel, will have their 2020 fiscal year report ready, and the finance director will review the report and forward any recommendations to the auditor. The borough still has its tax anticipation note totaling $1.5 million, which we have not yet had to draw on this year. Through the month of February, in the general fund, we've at 16% total of our budget, and individually underneath that, the public works is at 20%, the police budget is at 16%, IT is at 21%, and general administration is at 17%. So everything's pretty much right where we expected and right on budget. And snow removal through February, we're at 73% of the salt budget and 58% of the equipment budget. So barring any more snowstorms, we should be good on our budgeting for those items for the year. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Seitz. Mr. Vento, Roads, Equipment, and Grounds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. The roads, equipment, and ground report for February 2022 is as follows. The projects that we were involved with, when it wasn't just snow removal, we moved equipment to Malabar Drive late in the month to remove the section of the culvert that collapsed. Sold a 2021 pickup to Centerville Borough that we no longer need. We sold it for $6,000 more than the purchase price, which I think is what's going on right now as far as car prices. So
That's a deal.
good. I didn't like the idea of selling something so new. Why did we buy it if we didn't need it? But at least we got a profit by getting rid of
They
it.
want to buy my car?
I don't. No, I don't want to buy any cars.
I got a Buick for sale.
The road maintenance during the month. So our first winter maintenance call for this season was on January 6th. Repaired mailboxes that were damaged during the snow removal. There has been an increase in the cost of materials for these repairs. I will remind everyone that it is not the truck that causes the damage. It's the snow rolling off a 10-foot plow. And So byproduct of all these heavy wet snows is just exactly that. This stuff rolls off and, you know, especially after the mailboxes are covered with a little bit of snow in the base, they just get knocked right off. So nobody likes it, but it's where we're at. It's part of the deal. And we have repaired and painted snowplows. We also have repaired and painted trailers. We have started spring maintenance on all mowing equipment. We inventoried all inlets and pipe that will need to be repaired or replaced in the 2022 paving program. Orders will be placed for any additional materials that we may need. There may be issues with getting materials due back on orders. I'm sure there will be quite a price increase in all materials. So we have been cold patching potholes, and when the asphalt plants open in the spring, we will mill and make repairs with hot asphalt. We have ordered new street signs for the newly paved streets. These will be installed when they are received. Installed new street signs were necessary due to poor reflectivity or damage. Removed any unnecessary signs. And we had a total of 174 hours of overtime for winter maintenance in February. We also had 8 hours overtime for traffic control devices. And also, I was able to get some of the nice gentlemen, the bosses over there at the Borough Building, to meet with me. It's my first time as the chairman of this committee, and I wanted to talk with them, although I know them all except for John Schultz. I didn't know John before we hired him, and I'm glad we had a chance to meet. It was just, you know, getting to know each other and finding out what they had going on. And I noticed, I did talk about that, move the equipment to Malabar Drive, and it was there was a partial collapse of the culvert that resulted from the sewer line, I'm pretty sure, leaking there, and it froze and thawed and just broke a piece of the culvert off, and it fell into the creek. So we moved the equipment over there, and before we did that, we asked the contractor, who was just moving at the same time, if they'd like to do the work since they're coming there, and you know. And the best estimate we got from them, they wanted to do a time and materials, which contractors do on something like an emergency call. So they wanted 4 days to do it, with time and material for all the equipment and men, and we did it in one. So just want to say that was a heck of a savings to the community, and I applaud the Public Works for getting that done. And like I said, patching is ongoing with the cold patch, and we are purchasing a new van for carpenters. That's just so they can keep their tools inside and not have to worry about them being stolen. And the facility lights, the libraries, they're talking about replacing lights up there, adding some new ones. And HVAC, an engineer, they need an engineer for bid docs. They have to bid the HVAC out, so they need an engineer to give them the bid docs. I don't know if that's been attained yet or not, Mr. Sabosley?
We have a proposal from a mechanical engineer, and staff is working with the borough manager to look at that, but I think we'll be moving forward with it.
Okay, real good, thank you. And also, they did some work at the senior center on ceiling tiles, smoke eaters, and water heaters. And it was a really good meeting. I appreciate all the guys. Mr. Sabosley was also there with us, so I think it was a good meeting. I'm looking forward to more with the full committee. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vento. Mr. Dern, Public Safety.
Thank you. The only thing I'd like to put in before Mr. Brian comes up, Maloney, just remember, everybody, the fish fries are up and running. Logan's Ferry each week, Renton, and Holiday Park. So if you can support them, that'd be great. I've been at Holiday Park a couple times already. It's a phenomenal fish dinner. So this week I'm planning on hitting Renton. Mr. Maloney, if you would, please.
Thank you very much. Brian Maloney, Director of Operations, Plum EMS. I always appreciate the opportunity to come up here for just a minute or so to present the operational report. For the month of February, we actually had a little bit of a slower month as well. The previous 4 months, we were setting records. February was a typical month for us. We ended up doing 209 calls, transported 129 patients. Ended up in neighboring communities 11 times, and 10 of those resulted in transports. We needed neighboring agencies to come into Plum 13 times this last month. So kind of a higher number is about 6.3% of the time EMS was needed in Plum. We had to call for help, but at the same time, that's why we have that relationship there. We want the community to always be taken care of. And it's interesting, the recognition, Mayor Slagle, that you did with Officer Iacchini. These are the same people day in, day out help us and are there with Plum EMS helping. Just last week, we had a significant traumatic event at the Plum Library. And when we pulled up there were two Plum officers rendering initial care to this person who got ran over by a car. And it was just amazing to see that. And the one, it might not have been by choice, but he helped me bandage the arm and everything. I mean, they're in it with us for so many different things other than law enforcement. I was just bragging about them over the weekend as well, and I used the word aggressive. And the person was like, "Oh my gosh, Plum Police aggressive?" I'm like, "Not like that." The police department is one of the best I've ever worked with throughout my 23 years in EMS. On any potential cardiac arrest, on any potential overdose, they're showing up with an AED in hand, their first aid kits in hand. It's a very great relationship, and I hope to embrace and enhance and continue that, for as long as we possibly can, because that's what pretty much helps make this community, is the people that are there for each other. So it's an amazing thing. But then to add to that, for last month, and actually this month and the next 2 months, Plum EMS is spending time with the Plum Boro School District. We're walking through every school. 100% of our full-timers will have an opportunity to literally get a tour of each school. Look at the exits, look at the entrances, find out where the elevators are, the nurses' stations. We want our people to be familiar with these facilities. So I thank the Plum Boro School District for taking the time to do that. And just last week, Eric Valentine and I actually had an opportunity, as tough as it was as a Pitt alumni, to go to Penn State. We actually spent 3 days there going over an incident management class for large-scale events that could even kind of be applicable to smaller-scale events for the event planning, and then if an incident occurs, on how to do that. And really talked about the importance of community and working together. And that's one thing I have absolutely no issue or problems with, whether it be Chief Conley or Jim Sims with the EMA or the fire departments or any of you. I know that we're in this together and here for the community, so I thank you for that. So, questions, comments, a little story to make me smile?
Well, just know that your mention of the Plum Police probably stopped you from ever getting a ticket again, so you're good.
We'll see about that.
And thanks for not
Don't
bashing
abuse
insurance
it, though.
people this time around.
What's that?
Thanks for not bashing insurance agents this time. This
It's easy to do.
I'm not going to live that one down.
I know.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. That's all I have, Mr. Doyle. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Dern. Planning and Economic Development, Mr. Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the Planning and Economic Development Committee, for the financial summary, there was 50 permits issued for a total of $12,476 in revenue. The Planning Commission did not meet in February. The Zoning Hearing Board did meet on February 16th and reviewed the following application about a variance for a detached garage. The Zoning Hearing Board approved the request. In terms of highlights of our activity, the borough recently filed a repeal of the recent Zoning Hearing Board decision in regard to Pinelco's application to expand a non-conforming use. We submitted the Floodplain Management Activities Annual Report for 2021 to PEMA. Staff completed the Building Code official training for International Building Code updates. We completed the building inspector training for the 2018 International Residential Code changes. We issued 4 occupancy permits for 4 new homes. We met with Olympus Energy to discuss a land development project along the Murraysville border on Sardis Road. We also met with representatives for the Murraysville HOA Pond, the CIMA Pond, Clover Commons Pond, the Pivot School Pond, the Amplified Church Pond, and the Serenity Ridge Pond. We also met with the elementary teachers for a project in Plum Creek Park. For code enforcement, we completed 46 occupancy inspections, addressed 7 complaints for junk and debris, and our code officer responded to a fire car where we had a car into a residence. That'll be all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Parks and Recreation, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Saturday, April 2nd, we have our Trout Youth Fishing Day at Plum Creek Park. Stream bank from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. The creek will be stocked with 650 rainbow and brook trout. Mr. Thomas, am I still correct in thinking that as of last year, from 8 to 11, it was mainly for the younger kids?
It is all for the young kids, under 14 and under, yes.
Yeah, and then after that, adults and...
Yes, and then after
Okay.
that, it's just as long
Okay.
as you have a fishing license, you can fish.
Right. Wednesday, April 6th, Coffee with the Mayor and the Manager from 9 to 10. This event will be broadcast on YouTube and Facebook Live. Saturday, April 16th, Drive-Through Extravaganza from 9 a.m. to noon. Register at plumboro.com beginning Wednesday, March 30th at 8 a.m. Registration is limited to the first 700 children, ages 10 and under. Saturday, April 23rd, Cleanup Day from 8:30 to 10 a.m. Volunteers will receive a T-shirt, gloves, and bags, and will be assigned an area of roadside to clean up. And in our Plum Magazine, our summer issue, the Plum Magazine will be sent out the week of May 10th. Our Savvy Citizen and Facebook statistics as of March 14th, 2022, Facebook is up. It was 5,069. It's up to 5,051 from last month, so it's up. And it's now the Savvy Citizen followers. There's 2,552, and that's up from 2,533 from the last month. Don't forget, the Senior Center has their bingos. Try to make it to some of them. The fire halls with the fish fries. And I'm also going to have a meeting. I'm going to get with the staff and get a meeting with the Parks and Rec Committee to go over some things with some of the field usages. And if you can think of it tonight when you lay down to go to sleep and pray for Ukraine. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. That ends committee reports, and the Planning Commission will meet on Monday, March 21st, 2022. Moving on to citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Appears no one has signed up for that. So,
Well, excuse me, if I may, I forgot something. I wanted to
Sure.
tag along with what Skip had said about Coffee with the Mayor. That was something we wanted to do back in 2020, but because of COVID, we were unable to pull it off. That is, it'll be here, as Skip had said, on Wednesday, April 6th, from 9 to 10 or thereabouts. And we'd ask you to please RSVP to events@plumboro.com. And hopefully we're going to turn this into a monthly event. And there are plans to have an evening session for those people who work. That's all I have, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're at the end of our agenda, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stern.
Second.
By Mr. Hadley. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.